Big bikes are a hell of a lot of fun. Take it from me, I absolutely love big displacement motorcycles. But why does every rider always seem to want to upgrade to something bigger when maybe they've already got their perfect motorcycle right in front of them? Well, let's jump on and let's find out. You see, you guys, when it comes to riding motorcycles, bigger doesn't always mean better. In most cases, I think I would say yes, that does apply here. But to be honest with you, I've had near enough just as much fun on smaller bikes as I have on bigger ones. And you know, there are so many benefits to smaller bikes when you think about it, that at least when it comes to street riding anyway, I've just got to put this out there, this video, because as much as, you know, I always prefer a bigger motorcycle over a smaller one, I don't think that these smaller bikes should be overlooked. Now, this is the Yamaha FZ6, and it's the smallest bike that we've got in our fleet at the moment, and to a lot of people this wouldn't be considered a small motorcycle, but honestly, compared to a 1 litre, there's a huge difference between this and a 1 litre bike in terms of overall performance. But performance doesn't always mean extra fun, and that's kind of what we're going to be hanging on to here today, because a lot of what I'm going to say also applies to A2 motorcycles, bikes that are an even smaller displacement than this, with even lower RPM and half the horsepower. Okay, so what do we class as fun here? Because this is totally subjective, you guys, alright? What one rider finds fun, another rider might absolutely hate, or at least it's not the thing they like the most about riding bikes. You know, when power kicks in, where is that fun? Is it low down in the rev range? Is it in the middle somewhere? Is it at the top end? Well, again, you're going to find riders that will appreciate power at all of these stages. For me, the most ideal bike is one that has got more power in the lowered mid-range, but has still got a nice punch up at the top end like this bike does. And that's the thing, you guys. Somehow I seem to have missed all the bikes that, well, not all of them. I have ridden some on our ride reviews where there's not a lot of power, not a lot going on, and then everything is all in the last 3,000 or 4,000 RPM, and those bikes have a time or place. I mean, let's take the ZX4R from Kawasaki, for example, because that's the one that kind of makes the most sense for me to describe in this instance. So the ZX4R, fairly new bike. It's a 399cc inline 4, so a small bore 4. It was producing somewhere in the region of 70 horsepower, I believe, off the top of my head, at the top end of the RPM range, and it redlines at 16,000 RPM, also 16,500 RPM. And I mean, we're talking about small bikes here, and this is the thing. This is the exact opposite kind of bike that I've been describing as a fun motorcycle. But here's the thing, you guys. A high revving motorcycle inherently isn't a bad thing, and you can have lots and lots of fun on a high revving bike, but it does make more sense with smaller displacements. So with the 600, with the ZX4R that we're describing here, because that bike is a hell of a lot of fun, but it's not missing out on fun factor. So when it comes to fun factor, one thing that a lot of people need to realize is what is attainable fun factor, or innocent fun. When I say that, this is fun that you can have on a motorcycle that, well, you're not breaking speed limits, you know, you can still have plenty of fun on the throttle without having to worry too much about getting speeding tickets. And don't get me wrong, there's a right and a wrong place when it comes to riding bigger bikes, and how much fun you can extract out of them that isn't within the law, but on roads that you don't really need to worry about that as much. So that is something else that we I didn't really want to discuss that in this video because most people, they don't want to have that experience. They want to be able to have fun, but they want to be able to have it legally and without having to worry about police so much. Like, you know, you ride bikes, if you ride bikes, then speeding is always going to be one of those things that you're going to be watching out for, because it's so easy on bikes. Even A2 bikes, even the ZX4, bikes like that, it's very easy. Speeding on all these bikes is very, very easy. But the difference is how quickly you get up there. And a quick bike as well, you guys, doesn't necessarily mean fun. Again, a quick bike can be a lot of fun. A fast bike can be a lot of fun, but it's not the be-all and end-all. Like, how else can I describe this? Okay, fair enough. You can let me through if you like. So this bike, it redlines at 14,000 RPM. Okay, not the highest rev limit in the world, but certainly higher than quite a lot of bikes. Considering this isn't a super sport, this is a kind of like an oldish naked style bike. But it's still producing a load of power, and even though the R6, so this is the FZ6, the R6 is the sister to this bike, the super sport sister, arguably the more attractive sister in a lot of ways. But I've been pleasantly surprised at how fun this bike has been, even though it's not producing the same top-end horsepower as the R6 does. You know, I was looking in forums at how people would poo-poo this bike and how it has no power and stuff like that, when that's actually not the case whatsoever. It's got plenty of power, and it's producing power at the perfect time when it comes to street riding. Honestly, it really does. It's quite cool, to be honest, you guys, how even though this bike isn't producing a lot of power, what power it does have, it's producing in a very convenient point in the rev range. See, why are people trying to block me? It doesn't make any sense. I can get past you one way or other, you guys. There we go. So I suppose, I mean, one benefit to riding a smaller bike over a bigger one is, well, filtering is significantly easier on a bike like this than it would be on the likes of my ZZR 1400. I mean, I know this doesn't apply to 1000 Super Sports because they tend to be fairly small bikes in their own right as well. When you look at a 1000, if you put that next to a 600 without the fairing, or with fairing but with no numbers or no branding on them, it would be very difficult to tell between the 1 litre and the 600, because they both have a very similar profile in terms of their overall size. But generally speaking, a larger displacement bike means bigger in overall size, usually. Not always, but usually. So, I mean, if you're talking about a Hayabusa or a ZR 1400 or a Blackbird, for example, filtering is totally doable. I mean, I do it all the time on these bikes, but it is easier on the FZ6 here. I mean, that's just part of the argument here, you guys. All right, and don't get me wrong, I'm not taking big bikes out of the equation entirely here, but if you're happy on a smaller bike, getting on a big one, as much as I'd encourage you to always have a go, it's okay if you actually don't like it as much, because you can have almost just as much fun on the street on one of these big bikes as you can on one of these little bikes. So it is just something to consider here, you guys. I'm not counting one bike out of from another, but little bikes, they always have a habit of surprising me in how much fun you can have for so cheap and so innocently. And it's not like blow your head off kinds of power that this bike has, but it has just enough that it puts a smile on your face. And that seems to be the case with most small bikes. I remember when we did our ride review of the Z400, Now, I mean, I'm pretty sure Kawasaki, they're not selling those anymore. If they are, then it's just what's left in stockpiles because it's being replaced by the Z500. But man, what a fun bike that was. It's a bike that's producing 45, 46 horsepower. Not a lot of torque, not a lot of horsepower. 12,000 RPM or so, 10,000 RPM. Not really a screaming engine. But I tell you what, that bike, it did pack a hell of a punch. It was such a lot of fun for such a little bike. That was such a lot of fun, and most people would consider that in the US a beginner bike. And I kind of agree, to be honest. But that's neither here nor there, you guys. The fact is that you can have so much fun on a ZX4 that I wouldn't write off A2 bikes if you wanted that to be like your forever bike. An A2 bike certainly can fill that role, you know. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you stick with the same A2 bike. You know, rotate them around, get something different every once in a while to keep the experience fresh. But if you're looking at an MT-03, if you're looking at a Z500, Z400, or Ninja 400, Ninja 500, the CB500 from Honda, what else? I mean, are Suzuki making an A2 bike at the moment? I'm not sure, I can't remember. Maybe it's the SV650, but you need to get that restricted. But there are plenty of bikes in this category that are going to provide you with a lot of fun. Although I wouldn't necessarily recommend a single cylinder. Try and get a parallel twin. The G310 from BMW, again, it's quite a highly rated bike, which is also an A2 class motorcycle. But it's only a single cylinder bike. The red line is going to be quite low and the power band is going to be quite narrow. You want quite a wide power band. You want power band in quite a few points in the rev range. When you're not getting that, that can severely limit the amount of fun that you have on the bike. Because, you know, say all the fun happens within 1,000, 2,000 RPM, it's like, well, okay, great, I'm gonna have to downshift, I'm gonna have to upshift, I'm gonna have to do something to try and keep the fun going. And I mean, that's the one thing about slightly bigger bikes, you know, slightly bigger middleweight bikes, like this FZ6. They have that displacement to give you that extra little bit of punch at nearly any point in the rev range. You know, I mean, I'm at 8,000 RPM. It feels wrong on this bike to be at 8,000 RPM because it's got quite a nice punch lower down than that. But then it's always a lovely surprise when you get above 10,000 RPM how much extra power this bike has actually got left. It's really good, and it's not geared massively long. But again, that's another issue that you'll find on a lot of bigger motorcycles, is that they're geared very, very long. And as much as it's very impressive to be in first gear and doing well over 70 mile an hour, the likelihood is that you haven't really had a lot of power in getting there. You might have had power getting up to 70 or 60 mile an hour, but then you had very little power before that. And that's what I'm saying, you guys. When it comes to innocent fun, you want to have loads and loads of power getting up to 70 mile an hour, and then you also want to have a little bit more of an extra punch when it comes to the top end of the rev range. And when it comes to the FZ6 here, when it comes to the Z400, they've absolutely nailed it. They're such fun bikes for that reason. I think as much as what is fun is subjective, at the same time, I think a lot of these Japanese brands in particular, perhaps even KTM, they have figured out what a rider thinks is fun on the whole. There are always going to be these riders that like screaming engines that redline at 16,000 RPM or 15,000 RPM with no power, no power, no power. Then when you get to 10,000 RPM, that's where all the power is. There are going to be plenty of riders out there like that. But you might be pleasantly surprised, you guys, at how good some of these other bikes actually are. No, they're not the fastest things in the world, but they've got more than enough power that you'll ever need for street riding, and plenty of fun as well to boot. Loads of fun. And that's what it comes down to, really, you guys, you know. Fun per dollar. You might be paying an awful lot of money for an expensive, big displacement, expensive motorcycle, but are you going to be having as much fun on that bike than you could be on something like this? And I'll tell you what, that's a tough one. Because fun per dollar, again, it is a totally subjective thing, but if a bike puts a smile on your face, that's all that really matters. So if you're looking at a super sport, try out a 600. Maybe not a 636 from Kawasaki at the moment, with all the issues that they're having currently. But try a 600, try a 1 litre, or maybe you could try a naked or something like that, a 1000cc naked or something, and see how much fun, how much of a smile each of those bikes puts on your face. The likelihood is that the one that's got more punch, lower to mid-range in the RPMs, the more fun it's going to be, or vice versa. The higher the engine screams at you, and you're still having innocent fun, you're still within 60-70 mile an hour, that's also going to be a hell of a lot of fun, and that might be the type of riding experience that you prefer. So it does depend, you guys. I mean, I'm one of those riders that's been awfully lucky to have ridden big displacement, smaller displacement. I've ridden loads and loads of bikes, and I can honestly say that I've had so much fun on nearly all of these bikes. There are only really a handful of bikes where I think, this is a bit boring, or there's not really much to this bike. I bang on about the R7, you know, not being as good as I hoped it would be, but that's still a fun bike nonetheless, you guys. Don't get me wrong, it's still a fun bike. I've just ridden bikes that are more fun. But that's my taste in bikes, you guys. That's my taste, that's what I like. In my motorcycles, that's what I like. But don't knock a smaller bike. If you're looking at buying a new bike for this riding season, don't knock a smaller one. They might pleasantly surprise you at how good they really are. Maybe even, you know, if you got to buy that big bike, then that's great, get it. Maybe save a little bit of money for something that's smaller. Guys, I paid 1,500 quid for this FZ6 here. You can pay not a lot of money for a hell of a lot of fun factor on a smaller bike. Something that's a little bit older. It's 2006, is it? I think. I don't remember off the top of my head. But there are plenty of bikes in this age range that they've still got plenty of life left, and they're plenty fun. So don't knock them till you try them, you guys. There are so many riders that totally forget about A2 bikes. They totally forget about the 500s, the 650s, 600s. Even though there's so much fun they could be having on these bikes. Genuinely. They're that good. And that's the coolest thing about this whole kind of discussion, this topic today. Any bike that you guys might list in the comments that are boring, I'll probably find the fun in them somehow, some way. I'm telling you, there aren't really that many boring small bikes. I mean, when it comes to 125s, that's a little bit of a different kettle of fish, because there isn't really a lot you can do with a 125. There's no power there to speak of in any way. In any power that there is, you have to rev it high, but they don't rev very high. You know, so it's missing out on quite a lot of features, which even just an A2 bike can remedy quite easily. So 125s are a different kettle of fish, but they can be fun in their own way as well, because you have to pretty much red light them everywhere to get any kind of power. That can be quite a fun way to ride as well in its own right. So yeah, you guys, there's lots and lots of factors when it comes to this discussion, smaller bikes versus bigger bikes. But if you are a big bike owner and you've been riding big bikes for a long time, please don't be afraid to jump on something smaller, especially if it's an additional bike. You know, if it's a secondary bike or something like that, it's always a good idea to have a smaller bike in the garage, because yeah, you can just thrash it about and have loads and loads of fun on it, and you don't have to feel guilty about it. But thank you ever so much for joining us today on our video. If you've enjoyed it, you found it informative, or you agree, then please go ahead, leave that like, hit that subscribe button down there and that notification bell, and we'll catch you all in the next video. Everyone, take care, ride safe.